So we would like to try to find a way where we can have PD that is perhaps a little bit more focused on various groups, maybe smaller group PD. We also thought that perhaps there could be PD that people go to, like maybe people apply to go to, maybe like a summer conference, for
Okay, hang
example.
on just a minute.
Okay.
Let's, because we'll do those options and put those
Okay.
things up.
Their trade.
So you're looking besides you want me to So we do some PD at the district level. There isn't a whole lot that's decided there's a few days that we do. And then the principal is really in charge of PD supervision. Like there's always
variances, like if there's a new curriculum, then we bring that in, but usually your principal is the one that is helping coordinate that. And typically, whether it's different in a little different in every building, so it could be your building leadership team, your grade level team that helps determine needs. So that needs assessment you take, I sort it out by school and give it to your principal so they know this is what Paul Elementary teachers are saying they would like professional development in. And then they make those decisions on the days that they have of what they're able to offer. Sometimes schools, elementary schools, will all work together to bring something in or do something together. I know the middle schools have worked together this year to do some professional development too. But most of that is decided at your building level, yes. And your principal is also allocated money for your building, and so they decide how that is used. Thank you.
So I think some of that was just, I think from what we got from the survey was that some of the teachers were wanting a little more flexibility, like if there was a conference available or whatever to go to maybe replace the PD that was planned, depending, so that conference was more specific to their subject or grade level was part of the comments on that.
So I guess I have a question. Have they asked their administrator?
That I didn't know. That was just the comment. Or comment, excuse me.
So Wes, can I just to clarify? So are you saying like on a professional development day, a day that's been set aside for professional development, right, if a teacher was thinking to themselves, I don't really think this Friday thing is applicable to me, can I go to this instead?
Right. Yeah. So like you said, and I want to compliment. I know the district administration worked really hard to find things that fit their school, our district. But like for some people, it doesn't necessarily apply to the special ed teachers per se, where that special ed teacher would be good if they could go to something, or the math, it's more of a writing type thing, and really that doesn't necessarily apply to some of our math teachers, that type of thing. So if there was something else, just have an option that would really help, I think, with that.
So let's go ahead and put stuff like that up there, Jamie, that option of professional development. Yeah.
I mean, and I realize, especially with our, whether it's elementary or our secondaries, that it's so hard to find a one size. I mean, you're not going to please everybody. I totally get that. Totally understand that. But if there was just sometimes every once in a while an option that they could go to something specific to theirs instead of what was being offered that day.
Maren, did you have some other stuff? I was cut you off when you were talking.
Well, to expand a little bit on what Wes has said, for example, at the high school, we have new curricula in 3 areas: English, history, and science. And I'm sure this is probably true of the history and the science also, but our English curriculum comes with hundreds of professional development podcasts, videos, webinars, different things, more than we could, even if we watched one every day during the summer, we would get to all of them. And it would be helpful to us if we had on a professional development day, if it could be said, okay, English department, you work together watching your podcasts. And then we could, as a department, even further subdivide it from that.
How can we put that up there in short words there, Mark?
Maybe curriculum related podcasts and webinars. Would that
Yeah,
get
that
the
sounds
idea
good.
across?
Yeah. And then Ashley, you have the they do the survey and that's sent back to the. Okay. Need anything else up there? Or?
We do have another one.
Okay.
So oftentimes people go to things on the Fridays when we don't work. Actually, my department head and I went to one 2 weeks ago when we didn't work. And we know we have people who do things, go to conferences and different things during the summer. So we would also like if, when those people come back, if they could then maybe turn in some kind of a report or their, expenses or some proof that they have been to all of these things. And then they would be able to take other PD days off.
Okay.
So basically, Mar, you're saying kind of a trade.
Yes, a trade situation.
But I think that needs to be approved or agreed on
Well,
by the
yeah,
building principal.
yeah.
I mean, I can't see a principal denying someone to go to a workshop that's going to make them better.
Yep. So really, it sounds like that the building administrator has quite a bit of say in what happens with this.
Yeah.
I
So we just
would
want to
also
keep an open communication. It's not a complaint. It's just
Yeah. I
it's
get
just making sure we're keeping things out there so everybody knows these options. So as
I would
Mr. Ramsey said, whatever we're doing as teachers to make ourselves better.
that.
I would say a fair amount of PD money actually is used during the summer when principals ask. And a lot of times I think it comes from your department. So we want to get together and meet on a certain day. And they let me know, they have a due date to tell me that the English department's going to meet this day, and we give a stipend.
I guess I just have a question. So if we're, let's take a coach, for example. Let's pretend that a track coach went to a PD in Texas that is related to what they're doing, teaching in PE, and what they're coaching. So then would they be able to, when they come home, they prove that they've been there, could they then be given a PD day off?
I think
That's what we're looking for.
I think it all comes down to communication with your administrator. And I would say so in both instances, you've said after they come back. To me, if I was a building administrator, this would all happen prior. Like, hey, I want to go do this. This is going to be over a Friday or a Saturday or whatever it is. Would I be able to do this?
No, we're just.
I don't know. I don't really see this as an option, but to me, it's like communicate with the administrator. And I don't know if you would list that as an option, but to me, that's what a lot of this comes to.
So your emphasis then Ashley is just to make sure we're getting that pre-authorization.
Yes, because I would say most of the time, like if somebody were to come to me afterward and say, "Hey, I did this. Now I want this," then there might be.
No, I understand that.
Well,
That makes sense. Absolutely. No, go.
If we've got staff traveling to training, we would want to compensate them for mileage and whatever the conference costs are once it's pre-approved by their administrator. Because it's a win-win.
Yeah, and that we just want to make sure we've established that open line of
And I
communication.
think we've got some people going places this summer. Is that
Yeah.
already signed up?
So I think a piece of it also is that let's say that somebody's brought somebody something in for a training and all of a sudden all these teachers are like, no, don't want to go to that. And you have, whether it's your administrator or other people in the building that have worked. I mean, I guess I can personally, for me, when we do power up and then I see the list of people coming and taking days off, like I take it personally because I work hard on that day. I mean, so it is, so that's why I think the prior to. So let's say that I go, that I'm going to do this on a Saturday and I'm like, or Friday, hey, can I trade? That their conversation with the principal should be able to say is, okay, I'll trade you, but maybe not this day because we have such and such happening and I would like you to be there for that day.
Sounds like really it just kind of needs to be written up a little bit to within your buildings. And so is that what's wrong?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How far in advance do administrators need to know about this? Because, for example, I went to my administrator. There was a cool opportunity to do a coding professional development this summer. Or several months ago, I went and I was told that there wasn't any money for the travel. I got like a scholarship from the organization, so they waived the entry fee of like $1,500. But I was told there wasn't any money for travel. So, how far in advance would we need to arrange this so that money's not used and it could be approved?
So your administrators already have their PD budget for next year. So they are already in the planning phase of that, especially if you're going to go somewhere or bring somebody in. Often those things have to be booked out months in advance. So I asked them to make a plan and then to also start budgeting their money. There is also, it depends on where the travel is. There is a policy. If we're out of radius, it's actually 4 months prior. If it's in radius, it's at least 30 days. I mean, if you're going far away, that is in place so that we can try and get that early bird registration kind of thing, make sure we can get you the hotel, all of that. So in radius would be considered like to Boise and Salt Lake. Anything beyond that is out of radius.
And then there'd just be
How far into the year? Like if we didn't find out about something until like the PD was in the summer, but we notified the administrator in February or March, that's the 4 months, but then we're told there's no money. So when does money usually get used up for that?
That's really hard to, it depends on the year and it depends on the administrator. Some will front load it and use a lot of their money. Some like pace it throughout the year and then sometimes it's left at the end of the year because they've kind of paced it out. So I don't know that I have a real good answer for that one, Brandy. We would like to caucus.
okay.
Okay.
How long? You need, Ashley?
10 minutes.
Okay.
10 minutes. Okay, we're back from the caucus and let's go ahead and get started again. I would like to just say a couple of things that when we're discussing a discussion item or, just one of these kind of things that we just talk about. So as far as it goes to as individual schools or any of those kind of things, I think a process to set up to keep everybody kind of on the same page might be helpful. But when you start talking about trading and compensation and all that kind of stuff, I think that takes us to a different level than this discussion. Does that make sense? So I think we need to just be careful and just kind of make sure that we're staying on just topic here about what we can do and how to go further with this problem that we have. If it is a problem, even it sounds like it sounds like it's more of a communication issue. Yeah. Okay. So you guys caucused. Ashley, did you want to speak to anything first?
Yeah. So I think for us, it's a communication thing
Yeah.
that that we need teachers to communicate with their administrator. So if there is something that they want and that they would like to do, that conversation happens with the administrator. I think sometimes whether it's because COVID and we didn't travel or we just think something's not an option, I think sometimes people don't actually go ask what can be done. And sometimes the answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
But going and talking and seeing what the options are, like our administrators feel like they can work through those things.
Okay. Brandy.
Okay, so some of our questions as teachers, how do we find out how much money is allowed per building for professional development? So do you want me to ask all my questions at once and then
No, let's just answer them
okay.
as we go.
Your administrator has that. They could tell you, like I can tell you how I calculate it. There are certain things that we just reserve off the top that we have to do, like CPI. Like we get the pot of money, and then we have some things that affect everybody that we just pull right off the top that we have to do. CPI is one of them. We set aside some amount for SPED training. Our back to school speaker will come off the top, and then there's a chunk of money left. So I give every school a base of money. Usually it's 3,000 or 3,500, 4,000. It just kind of depends. And then I take how many teachers are in the building, and so I'll have what is left after the base comes off. I take how many teachers are in the building divided by the amount that was left, and then that is the amount you'll get in your building per teacher. Does that make sense? It's kind of how I calculate it. So, I mean, I don't give a CEQA and don't get the same amount of money. A CEQA gets less money because they're small.
Mm-hmm. Did that help, Brandy?
Yes, and then
Okay.
the like I understand that a lot of times the administrators go to conferences. So is that part of the already taken out money at the top, and then so whatever's left is specifically for teachers in that building, not necessarily administrators?
Correct.
Okay.
Unless the administrator decides to do so. We have a rotation to send administrators to training. So not every administrator goes to the same thing every year. So like it'll be elementary, and then I think we go middle school and then high school. So and then, but if let's say that an administrator wants to do what's the one in Sun Valley called? Project leadership.
Yeah.
So like if they decide to do project leadership, then that's going to come out of their building fund. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And those are usually more like close things.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Yes.
Okay.
So sometimes we don't know about PD or conferences or something outside of that 4-month policy window. What if it's something that comes across, let's say in an email, because that's usually where we learn most of our information, and it's shorter than that 4-month window, but we go talk to our administrators as soon as we find out about it? are there exceptions that can be made, or what happens at that point? We just are unsure.
I would like to say there were never exceptions, but yes, there are exceptions. But like if you're asking like to go in a month to, I don't know, where's somewhere, Florida, like that, the cost of asking that in that short window, like we may deny it because it would be more expensive than if it had been done prior. Does that make sense? Like it just kind of depends. I don't know that we've ever denied too much.
One of the other things that is a consideration is sometimes we get some grant money, and sometimes that can change the way things look too. So there's the district money, and I double checked to see what mine was last year. So district money for my building last year was $4,900. And so if I were to split that equally among my certified staff, that'd be about $300 a piece. So I mean, we could go to Filer. and,
Yay.
and then
You can't even get to voice for gas.
yeah, but not stay the night, just for gas. But the reality is, so we can't send every teacher every year. So and just like the district can't send every administrator every year, they do that 3-year rotation for the administrators to go to stuff. And so, like this year, I had some teachers come to me early on and ask if they could go to the FACE conference. And before I could approve that, I had to think about my building goals. Because I'm an alternative high school, one of the big priorities for me is the prevention conference, which they had in Boise this year. And I wanted to send as many teachers as possible to prevention. However, it meant them being out of my building, so I knew that I couldn't send more than 4 because I can't get enough subs to cover. So I wanted to make sure I still had the money aside for 4 to go to prevention. I didn't know which 4. And so I double checked it, and then I negotiated with those teachers. I'm like, if you'll double up a room, if you will ride together, so that I could budget that out for the priority for my building, which is prevention conference, and still make sure we can get as many teachers as possible. And then what I told my teachers, I said, everybody who went this year, you won't be going next year. That'll be other people. So it has to rotate and has to change through. Now, if I get grant money for something, then I can have just a little more leeway. So I think it's really important. I like what everybody's been saying, and I think D right here is the most important thing. And I think that's that communication with between the administrator and the teachers. If we get that two-way communication going, I think that's the most important thing. But I think it's really important that we don't put limits on here that hamstring us too much. Because again, if I had to be completely equitable, we got $300 a person. We're not going anywhere ever. So we just have to keep those things in mind. I think communication is the key.
And I think with every society, we just want to make sure the teachers have something sent to them that says this is the process, so we know this is what we need to be doing. So then that helps open our line of communication of going, okay, well, if I'm going to want to go do this, the district sent me this, said this is how we have to do it.
Is that like a written process, Wes?
Just some kind of process written so they can see how that needs to be done. And then go ahead, Brittany.
And I know it's in policy, but I'm going to be honest. Our policy manual is ginormous, and it's really hard to wade through, and sometimes it's really hard to find things in there. So, as staff, knowing where to look, where to refer, it's a daunting task. So, just something that's really easy for us to refer to, someplace.
So just a clarification question. So if I understand you right, Wes, what you guys would like to see is just like a form and a process.
Yeah.
Would you like that to be a district-wide form/process or a building, individual building form and process?
I don't think that really matters if it's district wide or building wide, because I think that there are probably some administrators who are pretty good about letting people know how much PD money is available. Kim sent out an email, I think it was yesterday, with how much PD money was available. If you wanted to go to things, come talk to her. She is very proactive in that way. And when we do our building back to school meeting in the fall, she always talks about that. And perhaps that's not happening everywhere. So I know, like at our school, we use the Google Drive. We have a little thing for the school year, and things like our bus duty and our phone numbers and all of those things are put in there. So maybe if every school did that and had a little, like maybe label it PD request, you know, not policy, but PD request. What's the word I'm looking
Procedures.
for? Procedures. Thank you. Um, then everybody could go to that, and if they knew, okay, the PD request procedure is here, go to that and read through that, and that way principals could deal with it as they want. Because until Maggie talked about setting, having PD that is relative to her school's goals, that hadn't even crossed my mind. So I think that it's good that principals can communicate with their teachers that way, and if it's on the Google Drive under whatever the school is using, then it's instantly available to any teacher, anytime, any place.
So is that
I just want to add one thing that I just remembered. I should remember this, but just so you're aware, when the governor held back that money in 2020, PD was one of the affected budgets, and it was never reinstated. So if you're like kind of comparing or thinking like, I feel like we were doing more things a few years ago, that's true. So and that was a loss of, I want to say, probably $75,000 to $100,000 less that we receive as a district.
Well, we totally understand that there are always budgetary constraints, and I think most of us have been here long enough. We remember when days were cut out of our contracts because of a national financial crisis back in 2008. So we totally understand that, and that there's that attendance and enrollment issue too, and the size of our schools. We know that's going to go up and down, and we do know some things that happen yearly, like we don't know the dates necessarily, but at least at the high school there are some conferences that are available to us every year, and we could probably, I think teachers could definitely be more proactive in going at the start of the year and saying, hey, I'm not sure of the date of this, it's usually here, it's usually this amount of money, and that would maybe alleviate the money is gone a little bit. I do have a question. If the money at the school is gone, is there money at the district level that teachers could apply for? Like Mr. Ramsey said, well, if it's something that's going to help students in the classroom, we would want to finance that. But if the district doesn't have any money past what's in the schools, then the district can't finance that.
right?
I'm laughing at Jamie here. She just realized she has a spelling error. Attended. You got way too many EDs going. Attended. You need to get rid of the ED and then the E and the N in that. Take the N. Attended. So to answer your question, Marin, not really, because I'm taking as little off the top so that it can flow down to the school. So if you wanted some off the top, it would affect the schools. Now, like if something was canceled or something didn't cost as much, like there could be minimal amount. Like if it's $500 to go to something, there's a possibility, but that would still need to go through your administrator, who would then reach out to me if I really would like this to happen.
Yes.
We just need to understand that there are required staff development, professional development requirements, and they cannot be exempted because you went to a webinar or something curriculum based.
Yeah, we folk.
Well, I think even like at your building, so I have two things. So remind me to talk about dyslexia. If If you're going and asking your principal, I went to this, but then I don't want to come the second Friday, and that's the day your administrator has things planned, your administrator may very likely tell you, I'm sorry, I need you to attend that Friday. And they should be feel comfortable saying, like, I need you there for the faculty meeting day, etc.
Actually, you mentioned there's dyslexia training.
Yes. Okay. So I wanted to mention this because this is going to affect PD, because this will affect all teachers in your recertification. So there is new dyslexia laws in place, and part of that is training. Now, secondary teachers have a little bit longer. We have a few more years to get everybody trained in dyslexia, but that is a piece that we will be working on to provide for our teachers, because when you recertify, you are going to have proof of a dyslexia type training. And I can see teachers saying, doesn't apply to me. Like, I'm not going to that. I mean, we'll pick on math teachers for sure, saying dyslexia, like that's kids can't read. I teach math. But that is something that does apply to them, and it is something that they are going to have to recertify.
I guess, can I just say one more
Yes,
thing
Ray.
about that? I think as part of D, we have written communication. So I think that the two components of that we're all talking about in different ways is just that agreement up front
Yes.
to talk about, this is the day, this is the training I'd like to go to, whether it's through a written process or not. But this is the training, this is the PD I would like to access. And I'm proposing, if I'm a teacher, I'm proposing that I don't come to this Friday PD next month. I think that's the communication piece that needs to be open for us to say, we're doing this behavior thing because we really need this behavior thing, and we really need you there. So I think that has to be part of that, just an agreement up front. Like, I don't think any of us are comfortable with not knowing or winging it in that kind of situation. So just that agreement up front about, this is the training I'd like to go to. This is what I'm proposing that I might miss down the road, so that we can then talk about, this is the training we have scheduled for that day for this reason, or whatever. Because like Maggie said, there's a lot. We do the needs assessment survey. We do try to plan things from our opinion to address the greater whole at times, based on what those needs are. And sometimes it's hard for us to communicate all those needs to everybody in the building. Like, we do have a need in this area, and so we try to address it that way. So anyway, I guess those are the two components as part of that communication that I think we're all talking about.
Yeah.
Up front. So
moving forward on this, are we okay with just the discussion? Going back to your administrative buildings, to your administrator in your buildings, speaking, maybe a go-to kind of thing. This is what we need to do if you have PD in mind.
I think we'd be fine with that if Mr. Ramsey could agree in an administrator meeting to remind administrators to get all that information out and to create some sort of building level process by which teachers could.
So admin meetings once a month. So remind them quarterly that remind your staff about professional development opportunities and funding. That's easy. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any more discussion on professional development? So let me have a little thumbs up to move on to the next. A nice job, everybody. Thank you.
Tim,
Yeah.
could I propose we take just a 10-minute break to kind of walk around?
Yeah, this is
stretch?
a caucus this break.
Not a caucus, just a break.
I'm all in.
There's healthy and unhealthy options back at the stage.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start the discussion on absent teachers, which is number 2 under the discussion items.
All right, so we're trying to find. Excuse me. So one of the survey questions that we sent out to all the certified had to do with when we have to cover because we're short on subs, which is which is always so. And we just want to find some equitable ways to make sure with because you end up losing some prep time, whether that's mentally preparing yourself for what's next for the rest of the day or whatever may happen, and find some equitable ways for that to happen for whether it's elementary, secondary, so whatever level or grade you're at. So, Marn, would you got some speak to some of those things?
So, excuse me. We have been told that some people have not been paid for covering other people's classrooms. I don't know how it's handled outside my building.
I know in our building, Jessica's.
Our secretary is really on top of it. So I can't speak to other buildings, but it also seems that people are not being compensated in some way for covering during their prep during ISAT testing. And we know that you have to have someone, you have to have an adult in the room. We all have had to sign the thing from the state. But we want to make sure that when people are covering during their prep, that including before and after school times, that they are being compensated for that. And we do have a number of ideas, but I'll just stick with that for right now.
So we have 2 different things I'm hearing just to kind of, so we have like the ISAT covering, and then we have just when our teachers aren't there and we don't have subs. Is that what we're talking about, or strictly just for,
Those
it's
are
that whole thing?
Those were the two things that were brought
Okay.
up.
Okay.
Like covering during their prep period covering.
Okay.
That's what we're.
So prep
Yeah,
period.
so and those would all. Yeah.
Equitable compensation for coverage during prep time.
Yep. And then add up there somewhere when, that there's no available subs, because that is really what's happening with the rest of it, I think. But we're definitely not going to talk about that. We'll get them as we can, right? Okay, anybody else like to speak to this?
Can I ask which school did not compensate their teachers for covering for the plan? Because if I knew who that was, then we could address that specifically and resolve that situation. I mean, is it a paperwork error or somebody didn't?
I don't know, because in the survey, people's names are not associated with the comments.
So and then and it could have applied to the ISAT
Right,
stuff
it
as
could
well.
have been.
So it could have easily applied to that as well. So I don't know.
I need a little clarification because I'm hearing like before and after school and prep time. So what? To me, those are different things.
So say that again, Ashley.
I need clarification. So I heard that they're not being paid during their prep time if they cover. And then I heard before and after school.
That's just a comment that we received.
Okay.
I don't know what the person meant.
Okay.
I don't know if it was like, they covered for somebody who had bus duty when it was their before school prep time. I know at Minidoka we do cover for each other and it's no big deal to us.
Right.
But it may be at other schools. I don't know any of that.
Okay.
So.
And I just think probably the biggest thing probably would be the prep time is the biggest focus.
I agree. Prep time is the big thing.
Okay, so we're gonna focus on just prep time.
Yes.
Like, I'm just curious if somebody can clarify, maybe a principal, like the process or what happens for somebody to cover during their prep time. I'm looking at Greg.
I sure can. So So in a case where we don't have classrooms covered, due to the sub shortage, our secretary does a really great job too of we've tried to help her out more this year, be proactive. With other people in our building, we have paraprofessionals that are covering, but in this case, we look at who's available every period of the day, who has their preps. So for example, who has first hour prep, we go through those individuals and ask one of them to cover during first hour, and then down the road, second hour, third hour, for the entire day. And so we try to line that out as quickly as possible, and those teachers just step in that classroom during their prep time, and then throughout the day, and then at the end of the month, we get the timesheets from our secretary, who goes over those with us, and we sign off that they covered those classes, or this person covered this many classes this month. So we'll sign it and then turn it in. So that's kind of the process in a nutshell.
So you have an actual timesheet, Greg?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I believe they have to have a time
Yeah.
sheet,
So
correct?
TLA, so that they'll call us out and you check off. Okay, you covered for this person on this day,
Okay.
and you just sign off on.
So if they don't do that timesheet, or if I go to Brandy and say, hey, I want to leave, and I don't tell my principal and have her cover, there would be none of that in place and wouldn't be compensated then. It was our side deal.
I am putting that in my notes.
So
I am.
oh, go ahead, Maggie.
Yeah, I'm just again, I'm a little confused on this, and I know you guys don't have more clarification, but it seems like we have that process in place with the timesheets. The only thing I can think about is if, like if we had last year, I had a lot of secretary changes, and so during a secretary change, maybe some of those hours got lost or something. But so my request would be that that principals and union members let's reach out to those teachers, and if they feel like they got missed, please have them talk to us, and let's make sure we get them compensated for those hours, because that should have been done.
And I know that there have been times when teachers have been asked to cover during their prep, and if the teacher says no, then in an evaluation, it was put in an evaluation that they are not a team player because they refuse to cover during their prep time. And that's some of the concern that came out through our survey, through conversations that we have had with people. The equitable compensation, by the time we get the $25 if we cover, but by the time it's all said and done and everything gets taken out, we maybe get $13. And honestly, teachers are exhausted, and that $13 that we actually get to take home, to a lot of teachers, it's not worth it. But if they say no, which they have the right to because it's in our master agreement, so they have the right to say no, but they don't want it to reflect poorly at the end of the year on their evaluation or something like that. So then they reluctantly say, okay, fine. I know at some buildings, between ISAT testing and having to cover other classes, there were some teachers that did not get their prep period for almost 2 weeks. And the little bit of time that they have before school and after school and their 30-minute lunch, it was draining, and it drops the morale of teachers wanting to come to the buildings.
And then what at elementary level? How are they compensated? How does that work there?
With ours, usually the paras are the ones that help cover for them, so we don't usually have that problem.
So you're saying this is a high school issue or middle school issue? Because it sounds like the elementary is resolved or has a solution to their.
Maybe. I can only speak for the middle school. We have high school teachers, but it was definitely something that came up repetitively on the survey results that we received, that covering during prep time, is there any other sort of compensation. We did do some research. Twin Falls School District has in their master agreement an entire clause about compensation time for class coverage, and they actually give their teachers comp time instead of having them necessarily paid it. Like in our district, it's $25. So they are given compensation time. I know that Casual Schools also does this, at least at the high school they do. That's what I'm familiar with because my husband teaches there. But they allow comp time. So if someone covers a class during their prep, then the school record keeper, that's what it states in Twin Falls master agreement, it's okayed by the principal. So it's prearranged by the principal. And then someone in the record keeper in the building keeps track of it and tracks their comp time for their teachers, and they have it outlined that if it's an elementary school, if it's a middle school or high school or secondary school, so they've got it outlined pretty detailed. And I don't know if that would be something that might be an option. I don't know.
And I came from the Twin Falls School District, so I was a teacher in Twin Falls. And I would say if that's something that we want to do, I would not want us to make that decision right now. We'd want to talk to all the teachers and find out. Because as a teacher in Twin Falls, I know I was often one of the ones that was covering, but I was not often gone. And so, you just do it. Yeah, I built up all that comp time, but I didn't get to use it for anything because I wasn't gone. I personally would have preferred being paid for that time, but that's just a personal preference. So I think some teachers liked the comp time. I think some preferred to be paid. So if we're going to go that route, that's cool, but let's make sure that all the teachers know the difference.
Well, for the purpose of this discussion, we probably can't go there as far as the compensation and all that kind of stuff, but we certainly can talk about, um, a list of teachers that are willing to do that. So then you don't ask everybody, maybe. I don't know anything else.
And maybe it's been since you left, Maggie, but Twin Falls School District, in their master agreement, it says if coverage units are unused, certified employees under contract covered by the agreement may request the conversion of the units into full days that are paid at the current certified employee guest teacher rate.
It's just full days of compensation again. So it's just more days to take off.
But
But maybe it's changed.
then in the way they written it there, you get compensated financially. Is that what you're saying, Brandon?
Yeah, it says guest teacher rate, but then it also says in the next sentence, the certified employee shall be allowed to carry forward a maximum of 21 coverage time units. So they've broken it into coverage time units that they can carry forward. I know sometimes coaches have to leave in the afternoons, or they need a couple of maybe the last class period or the last two class periods. And the only way that we are allowed to get a substitute teacher is for a half day. So instead of getting a half day, they ask other teachers to cover their time. And then we're back to is it really worth it? They're given a guilt trip. I know at some schools, teachers feel like they can't say no. And so they give up their prep time, especially the teachers, it seems like in the afternoon, that have the afternoon prep periods.
So as far as this discussion, how can we help out for right now and what's to move forward with this?
I think we also need to look at the amount we are compensating teachers.
The amount?
That for working during their prep time. Like Brandy said, you get maybe $13 out of the 25, which is my time in grading worth more than $13? The answer to that is always going to be yes. So we might, if we're not amenable to going with comp time, then perhaps a significant increase in the amount a teacher is paid, so that they look at that of, oh, here's what I'm going to get in my actual check. That actually makes it worth it of, oh, okay, I'll grade for an hour at home tonight instead of here, because teachers need to have some balance in their lives too.
So is that something that the district could look into, how that's being paid, or any of those things to be able to move on? Or 25?
$25.
25 an hour. And what do we pay subs for a day? 100? 7 hours? So when we have a teacher do something after school outside their contract time, we pay them on timesheet, correct? Like for tutoring and they're paid 25 an hour for those.
It depends. Depends on what it is that they're doing. So our stipend rate is $27.50.
We can certainly look at that.
Or thoughts on it? Or is that helpful? Or
Can I just take a 5-minute caucus
oh,
real
you
quick,
certainly
please?
can. Yep.
Thank
So
you.
5 minutes.
Yes. Thank you, sir. I think Brandy had something she wanted to say, and then Maren was gonna have a nice little solution.
Okay, so we sent out this survey to not just the members of the MCEA, we sent it out district wide so that everyone could have a voice, everyone could bring comments, they could give input. And this absent teacher issue that we brought up came up often. We received 173 surveys, like 173 of our certified staff took the survey, which we were ecstatic about. We do feel that this is something that we would like to address at negotiations, simply because this is the one place that teachers in our district have a voice. This is the one place that they feel like they can make an impact. Not saying that we don't trust administration and school board at all, but this is where teachers have a voice. It is bargaining, it is negotiations, and it's an opportunity for their voice to be heard. So we would like something about this to be formal for our negotiations.
And Maren has something to. What she has.
So we discussed this quite thoroughly, and we have a sort of a plan here. And when we surveyed the certified teachers, these two came out almost equal as far as possible solutions. But we would like the administration to send out a survey asking these two things. So the first proposal would be for comp time. And I have a lot of details here about how that would work. But we'll just leave it at comp time right now. And then our second proposal, so the or, was to increase the amount of money that was paid to $50 for the prep period. And we broke it into units like Twin Falls did. And we had people from elementary, middle school, and high school there discussing it so that we could get it figured out so it would be equitable. We had a slight challenge with Mount Harrison because we weren't quite sure how things would work there, but we think we have it. But that would certainly be something that could be discussed in further detail.
Just one.
This is that's good. Yeah.
So what Maren's proposing there is that what my understanding, Maren, is that the administrators would send a survey out to their faculty to see which one they would rather prefer. So that way we've included everyone in this decision, like Maggie had mentioned earlier.
Are we supposed to be talking money in this portion of the proceedings?
If you're trying to put it in your agreement,
But this is just discussion, right?
go ahead, Wes.
So this would just be the survey.
So you're requesting that we give a survey.
And this is what we're asking to have on.
I guess I feel like that. Can I just speak honestly here? Like, I feel like that might be misleading. So if I were to send out a survey saying, would you rather have comp time or $50? But if we don't feel like we can pay $50,
right?
Like, I'm sending a survey asking something that maybe giving false hope of something. I sometimes have survey paranoia.
No, I understand.
Maybe I'm sorry.
You're good.
What if the survey just said comp time or increased monetary amount and we didn't specify because we didn't know yet?
You can just cross that out. You can just leave it up and then for a minute here.
Can we caucus?
Like, can I say something? Can we?
Yes, please.
So one of the things we talked about was making the compensation amount match what the stipend rate or if it increased, it would match that amount instead of seeking a different amount than what we have our stipend rate as.
So to clarify, Ashley, on the stipend amount, that's if you have the 4-year degree, you get the $100 a day. Is that what you're basing it off of?
So we do our certificated stipend rate is an hourly $27.50, which then we calculate.
Okay, all right. So then, as far as like, I know we have issues with competing subs. So, like for example, Cassia County pays their certificated $212 a day to sub versus our $100. As far as
They
competition and
pay
subs,
who?
they pay those who have their 4-year degrees
So somebody that's a substitute.
pay
Yep.
their subs $212 a day, and then we pay $100 a day for our 4-year degree subs. Is that
Okay,
correct?
so now we're like getting to now we're talking about substitute.
Okay, well I'm just asking because you're basing off your amount off. That's what I'm asking.
So I'm just basing the $27.50 base that if we're gonna pay you on June 15th to come do something for 4 hours, we calculate that at $27.50.
Okay, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
One concern that I think administrators have about this comp time system is that we would have a lot of teachers out in May and then not have subs to cover for those teachers. We need to have some kind of procedure where they can't carry over all this comp time to one April and May's timeline and they never show up for
We
2
have a
weeks.
solution for that. When we talked about solutions, and that was that using your comp time, we'd like it to be like Twin Falls, where it carries over from year to year. And if you leave the district or retire, you get paid out for it. But we also realize that that would be a problem. And we know that there is a problem with substitutes because we aren't paying as much as the nearby districts for substitute teachers. So people are going across the river. And so we figured it could be handled exactly the same way as personal leave, where you have to apply for it. So maybe I have 2 periods of comp time coming to me, and I just need a period. I need to leave early all of seventh hour so I can get to an appointment somewhere. Um, I would apply for that just the same exact way I would apply for personal leave, and the principals would have the same exact ability to turn that down that they have to turn down personal leave. It would just be leave that's coming from a different pool than personal leave.
I guess I would just say, as it relates to comp time, I mean, I'm a little uncomfortable with comp time just in general, also, because you can see, for example, if a teacher says, I have 2 periods of comp time that I'm going to use Wednesday afternoon, I realize, Mary, you say that we can turn that down. It's just a process of whether it's approved or not. But it's really difficult, as you guys all know, we're short, and so to stack comp time on top of comp time on top of comp time on top of, like all of a sudden we're buried and we're buried with just absenteeism, and that's my concern about it. In addition to that, just the tracking of it and kind of like, okay, we're talking about a specific use of comp time in this discussion, but if we do that, then maybe that opens the door to I need comp time for this or that's not related to this discussion. You know what I'm saying? So teachers do other things, and they say, hey, I was doing this at this time, so can I get some comp time for that? I just worry about the tracking of it and kind of the snowball effect that may occur if that's part of the discussion, I guess.
I don't see how keeping track of it would be any different than keeping track of who's covering for whom during which class period. It would be the same mechanism. It's just a different result. And I believe the policy states that no more than 10% of any school's staff can be out on personal leave at any given point in time. So if 10% have already turned in a leave request for a specific day for some reason or another, and the 11th percent comes in with a leave for comp time, then it's no. It's just no. You using exactly the same mechanism. They're just labeled different things. And people can come in and say all the time, "Well, I did this and I need comp time." It's just no. That's not what we do. We if you're covering for someone during your prep, you are getting that hour in comp time. If you do at the high school, for example, we have 7 class periods. So you cover 7 and you have a day of comp time. So if you want to take that on the day where you have state track, baseball, tennis, the answer is going to be no because we have all our coaches gone. But if you want to take that on like March 4th and nobody's doing anything on that day, then have at it. And you still have to find a substitute. You still have to put that in. We're expected to if we know we're going to be gone. We put in for our subs. We call them on the phone. We talk to them about, can you do it for me this day? We're pretty proactive that way. I mean, teachers would have to take responsibility for part of this too.
So, did you want to have a caucus, Brandy?
Sure.
Okay, only 10 minutes. If that's okay. Okay, thank you. All right. You said you're ready, Miss Tio? Okay, so I think Marin and then Brandy had some things to help with this discussion to move forward.
Okay, Marin, you want to go?
So we really do want to have this survey sent out via administration to all the certified staff to determine their preference of comp time or increasing the monetary amount. But we'd like to add a question to it, and that would be for teachers to enter in the dollar amount that they feel would be fair and equitable for covering for someone during their prep.
There was concern over us putting, the $50 on there because so is there.
So we want to get their input on what they think that would be, what would be
But
appropriate.
not holding to anything, just their input.
Right. So we're saying, do the survey. There'd be a question: do you want comp time? Do you want money? And if so, how much do you want?
Okay, Mr. Ramsey?
Could I get a copy of your survey that you sent out as far as the results or the questions you asked?
Um,
I mean, this comp time deal, it sounds like it's not a district-wide problem. It might be one or two sites that have concerns, and if I know who that was, then we could address that individually instead of having to do this district-wide approach.
we just feel that having you do the survey after we did it would give you the results, and that would be original to you. And we feel that it should be something that's district wide.
So I guess I have two questions. We would like to see your survey, and I believe that's part of our agreement that if you send a survey that you'll share the results with us.
That's correct, but we have to make sure we redact it for anonymity's sake.
Right. Yeah. And I guess our concern is sending out a survey with maybe something we aren't willing to do at this time. We recognize that this is an issue and a concern for secondary specifically, but we have some additional concerns with the comp time piece of it. And so maybe that's something that we need a little more time to look at and review what the implications of that would be.
In addition to that, I just would say in our standards, one of those standards is affordable, and I don't know, without further investigation and digging into what that might even be defined as it relates to prep time pay. We have a figure up there right now, $50, and also being able to fill in the blank about how much you think would be acceptable. I think we just need to kind of back up a little bit and decide what is affordable according to our standards and monetarily responsible. And I don't know that we're there today. I don't know that we're going to get there today. So I do agree with Ashley. I think we all agree with the fact that we would like to see maybe an increase there, but also I don't know that a survey is going to give us any good information about what that number might be.
Perhaps we could agree to put this in the parking lot.
So what happens with that in the parking lot?
So when something's put in the parking lot, means we'll deal with it later because we have the opportunity to reopen negotiations at any point. So that could be something that after some research on the part of the administrative team could be dealt with at a later point in time.
Okay, so not necessarily today or tomorrow or whatever.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
A mutually agreeable time.
Well, I don't know what you're doing. I'm ready to come back tomorrow. Let's do this.
I have.
What I'm hearing is that we want to kind of put this on the back burner for a little while and move forward and then visit it at another time?
Teal, can I?
Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
If yeah, if they would like more time to look into the comp time, and I understand that.
Angela, do you have a comment?
Yeah, so I guess I'm looking at the being equitable across because the elementary doesn't get that option because we have help there to help cover. So I guess my concern with some of this is then they're gonna try to want something that I mean we can't give them because we've already got the help for them. So it's not fair to them to not get any comp time or anything else for that.
Well, my answer to that would be education is inherently unfair because there is a difference between elementary, middle school, and high school. And each of those segments has their separate responsibilities and there's there are things that are different for them because of either state law or a school district policy or just by the very nature of the grade that and the subject area that people are working at. So it probably is not going to be something that everybody is doing, but that's okay. We can have things that not everybody is doing.
Can I ask you a question? So you said that this was taken care of and covered at the elementary schools. How? I'm just curious because I am not an elementary teacher. How is it? How do you guys address this and take care of it at different buildings?
We have the extra para help to work with our interventions and stuff. So those paras are then pulled for the classroom, so they cover the classroom all day.
So does that work during ISAT also? So at your school, then nobody ever has to cover for somebody else. Okay.
It's really difficult at the elementary level to have Abby cover during her prep because you'd just be rotating a different person with that one set of kids because they're in one class all day. So maybe in an extreme circumstance, Abby might get pulled every once in a while because she doesn't have her own classroom.
And then so do any of our schools have do we have like is it a permanent sub that they have or
We used to, Wes. I don't think anybody's got that right now.
okay. That was just a
But
question.
that was
It was just a
a
question
few
we had.
years ago. They did have that.
Okay. Thank you.
Because I know at our building, when we're told that paras from our intervention room won't be pulled. Like they helped cover during ISATs, but they won't be pulled to cover classrooms if they don't have a sub for those teachers. We were told teachers had to cover it, the paras were not allowed to. So I guess I'm confused
Most
why
of
it's okay.
your paras in the secondary level are going to be sped, and sped cannot.
Oh, they
IEP.
Those
So is
sped
that the
cannot
federally
be
funded?
pulled.
Yes.
Huh?
Is that the federally funded piece
Well,
then?
SPED are paid to provide service to your special education
Okay.
students. They have to provide those services.
So is the intervention, like the paras in the intervention area, are they also federally funded?
No.
It
Oh,
could.
yes, they are.
It depends on the person and who and where.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
there's
like,
quite
you
a
could have some that are funded out of title that have that specific role to help your English language. In our elementary, they are more general intervention. Some might be paid out of literacy, some might be paid out of there. But your SPED definitely cannot be used to cover.
okay. Thank you.
So we are we feeling good about putting it on the where are we gonna put it? In the parking lot?
Put it on the back burner parking lot. Got it.
Are we voting on that?
We would need to, yes. Is that could I have a vote on whether or not we're okay putting that on in the parking lot for right now to visit at another time? Okay, We have a consensus for that? Oh, Brandy.
You good?
Now we do. Yes, now we have a consensus for that.
TL, so lunch will be delivered between 12:15, 12:20 for us. So maybe we could take just a short break now and then come back and start on the next section.
Yeah, let's just before everybody clear your minds of everything now, and then everybody can start on something new and come back.
Yeah.
All right. Then you only get 5 minutes.
from what we heard from staff between survey and the committee, one of the biggest concerns was insurance, and the state in a way has helped us. We would have liked some more, but some wording wasn't done to go to the state employee plan, because basically, just so everyone knows, the way they wrote that bill, it would cause an $80 million shortfall with all the districts combined in the way it was worded in the funding. So there's only going to be probably at tops at this moment 3 school districts going to that plan. Okay, but they did give us more money for insurance this year to, I believe, from what we worked out, can improve our plan. And one of the biggest concerns was deductible was one of the biggest concerns that we saw brought up to what if we could fix that. I know there were some other things like lab work and that type of thing. Blue Cross does not cover lab work, but it goes straight to your deductible. So we're hoping by being able to lower the deductible, then your lab work is going to start getting covered quicker and sooner, is the best way I can say that at this point. It looks to me from what the state's going to require that we spend a certain amount that they send us, a certain percentage on insurance. So that should allow us to make our insurance better, at least on the deductible side of things. So are there any questions?
That last one is the state sent.
The state gave us a certain percentage that we have to spend on the amount they sent us. I can't remember if it's 97 point something percent. Michelle, would you mind answering that?
Correct. And so they sent us money from the general fund only, and not all the other funds. We got an increase, and we have a lot of money that we have to spend in the general fund on health benefits, and we have at least 90% of that funding. There's still a law in place that you can still use discretionary. They warned us to be careful not to use too much on discretionary because they will be watching it.
Right.
Too many school districts do that.
So, and then Michelle will have to report back to the state how much we're spending on insurance.
Right, how much currently you're spending on insurance per person? We're spending $8,700 around roughly on health insurance currently.
Per year, per person, per employee.
I'm sorry, how much is that amount? $8,700. And I'm rounding this up. And that's not just health benefits, that's all, their whole package.
That includes the life. That's the whole deal, the life map and everything. Yes.
And they bumped it to 11.8.
Yeah, I think so. So we worked with the insurance committee 2 different times, Mr. Ramsey.
Yes, sir.
To come up what was best to do what we could make as equitable as possible considering the situation. So right now, and our numbers are, we have 381 individual employees covered. Let me grab my paper. We have 13 that are their employee spouse, 6 that are employee 1 child, 25 an employee plus 2 children, and then 24 employees with their family. Now that's combining the traditional PPO with the health savings account number. So we have 381 single employees covered, and then ones that have plus 1 or more, we're at 68. So that's kind of where we're at and what we do as far as covering for people, and we had to weigh those options as we went forward with what we could cover. Todd Siemens could give us options for days and quotas for days on things that we could do, and we could cut down half the forest and ruin a copier if we wanted to. But we tried to come up with what we felt was equitable and with the concerns. So what we had come up with was to lower our individual deductible to $1,000, and the family deductible would be $2,000. The physician copay would still be the $10.30 and specialist $30.50. I'm just taking notes of what the committee's put up there. You need to stop. Are you good? Families at 2,000. Okay, and then the physician copay 1030, $10/$30. Yeah, 10/30. Yep. And then if you see a specialist, it's 30/50. So that depends on if you're where you're at on your plan. And then when your deductible is met, if you're in network, it's 70/30. 70% the insurance pays, 30% out of your pocket. Yes. That's in network. If it's out of network, it's 50/50. Okay, and then the max out of pocket in network for individual was 4,000, and the family was 8,000. This is the PPO, yes. This is the more traditional insurance. And then if it's out of network, it's 6,000/12,000 max out of pocket. Okay. Now on the drug card on your prescriptions, the copay is still 10, 30, 50. As far as $10, $30, $50, what it has been. And then we were able to there was a deductible of $500 for brand name. There will be no more deductible for the brand name at the $500. So it's just your copays would apply it in. You would have to meet the deductible first. And so the max prescription that you would pay on prescriptions per year would be $2,000. That's the max, which is what it has been.
Thanks, Wes. That was a lot of work, wasn't it? Getting that.
So that's kind of where we're at. I know from what the committee proposed was what the district would pay the employee premium, and then it's not a lot to help out the rising rates, but then there was another 68. Let's see how much is left there. Excuse me. No, $182.83. Is that correct here? Okay, 68.83. Sorry, looked at the wrong numbers. Yeah, so then the district would give you another $68.83 that they would pay towards your premium if you had a spouse, child, children, or family on there. So we haven't been able to give those people any money in the past. We are able to give them some from what was budgeted and what's given to us from the state in a sense. So those people's premiums are still going to go up. If they have those people, then the more than what they paid last year because we've lowered the deductible. We can put those numbers up there if you want. Yeah, would you?
Can I get a copy of that so I can post it?
Yep.
Mr. Depew, may I
Yes, sir.
interject?
Yes, sir.
The policy that the committee agreed on had two pluses in my mind. One was the lower deductible, and the other was the drug card where you didn't have to, but on the brand name. This is an improvement, even though it's how much, 19% increase?
1538.
15% increase in cost over last year. Health insurance is going to continue to do that, and we just need to be aware of that cost being changing and going up in one direction.
Do we have any questions as we digest that lovely amount of information?
Would you change the HSA?
So the HSA is actually the best HSA plan that Blue Cross offers. And that cost is going to help out our employees. And so instead of giving $99.20 a month put in your health savings account because of the difference of the premiums between the HSA and the PPO, you would get $291.78 a month put in your HSA. $291.78. Because you're going to get less what the district's going to do on their max contribution. Sorry.
Ms. Tibbetts, can you scroll that up so they can see that? What he's saying is right there on the bottom line.
I don't have that one.
Oh,
Yeah, yep.
right there.
Okay. And this is just a question I'm putting out there. It's not making any kind of proposal. I was just wondering, and this is a question for Michelle because she deals with the number side. Could the health savings people that have the spouse or the children or the family take that $68.83 a month and put it towards their premium instead of having it go into their account because they're already going to more than double their HSA? That way, that at least their premium payment per month is less to help, what that upfront cost is. Is that a possibility? Because like for example, if you have you're an employee plus a child, your premium is going to go down going into next year if that $68.83 is applied to their premium instead of put into their HSA.
I'd have to ask that question. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It could be sustained payments, but it's very expensive.
Yeah, so they would still get more than double what they're getting now in their HSA, and then they would have some of that $68.83 to go towards their premium. So now their premium's less. So actually their premium. So like if, for example, and I know of an employee that has a single parent with a child on there, their premium's going to go down if that $68.83 were to go to their monthly premium that comes out of their check. Okay. And I didn't know if that was with all the legalities of things, if that was a possibility. So, and I understand, and those 68 people, their premiums are going to go up. Their monthly premium's going to go up starting in September, correct?
September, I think, is our first,
Okay. When we would switch over. Now, the nice thing, I guess, if you want to call it nice, is that anything you've paid so far is going to credit to that new lower deductible. So we may have some people that will meet the new deductible at least in September through December, correct?
January, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is when
January is when it starts over. So we may have some people that will have met this new deductible in September, and that will last through December. But then they may have met their max out of pocket as well. So then they'd be 100% for those 4 months. So I know this is a big deal and everybody feels it. But as Mr. Ramsey said, we went through and hammered out as best as we could in those committee meetings to make it equitable as we could.
So what option is it? Sorry, because when I get a copy of the insurance, what option did you choose?
It'll be option 6 with no drug card deductible. Yes.
Option 6 with no drug card deductible.
No brand name card deductible.
there any more questions or comments or to Wes and Mr. Ramsey about the?
And right now it's benefiting us to be in the district pool at the moment because we do have some flexibility to change our plan. If they do get it together at the state level, then that's something we'd have to revisit next year on the state employee insurance. But at this moment, they've got a lot of work to do. So, for example, just to give you another, if somebody wonders why we aren't doing this, the dollar amounts don't compute. If you were hired after 2009, you cannot use your sick days to pay for insurance after you retire. So, like, for example, we bank our sick days. When we retire, we get to use those sick days to pay for insurance. If we went to the state employee plan and we were hired after 2009, we could not use those sick days to pay for our insurance. So that's gonna crush a good chunk of our teachers at the moment. Now, unfortunately, if you're just retired, and I know Carl's okay with me saying this, his sick days aren't going to count for as much as we change this plan. So those are just things to keep in mind as we balance what we could do in those meetings, well, for our employees.
So what's our next steps here for this discussion and?
Well, before we go to a vote, I just want to thank the people who served on the insurance committee, um, because I know that is tremendously difficult, and they listen to a lot of numbers, and they have to balance out the interests of all the district employees, and I just know that is extremely difficult, and I personally really appreciate the time and energy that they put into that. Because it's a really tough job, really tough. So thank you to everyone who was on that and worked on that.
Would you like to make the proposal, sir?
To accept the benefits as read.
To accept the benefits as read is what the committee proposed.
Motion.
Motion.
Ms. Louder, I'd like to make the motion to accept the recommendation of the insurance committee as read today.
And I would like to second that, and then Michelle, can you look on the HSA premium on that $68.83 if that can be used towards their premium? Okay. Yoo-hoo!
Yeah. Okay, the next thing, we're going to be done before lunch gets here. I know, sorry. Okay, so the next thing we talk about is salaries. And I guess that's, what do we have as a presentation for salaries or anything? You certainly can. I think we're all right to keep going. Were you gonna lead this discussion, or was Michelle? Or okay. Okay, we're just gonna begin the talk on salaries, and Michelle's gonna lead us through that.
Yes.
Yeah, would you come stand up here, Michelle?
No, that's why I want to stand back there, so.
Yes, there you go. Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about is units. And what we did, like always, we talk about how we figure our units. And that's how many children are in the seat on, and what we use is April 5th. So how many children were in the seats on April 5th? We moved all those children forward. We moved to the next grade level. Then we come up with the divisors of per school on how many units. So what we're doing and what we did for teachers this year, we're looking at 223 units. This is not based on attendance because we were given the go-ahead to do budget on enrollment based, a sort of enrollment based. They still kind of look at what kids come in and out, okay? So based on the average enrollment over the year, we're basing this 223 units, which is way different than what we were getting with attendance. So this year we would have been at 206 units if we would have went with attendance, okay? So next year, so you can see that's a big jump from 206 to 223. A unit is $110,000.
So, Michelle, how many units? That's up. We're at 223 units as of April 1st.
That's rolling kids forward for next year
Okay.
into anticipation, going into the next grade levels, graduating, etc., bringing in kindergartens. Okay. So that's rolling all these kids, and this is based on enrollment based, not attendance. Okay.
Correct.
So this current year, if we would have done attendance, it would have been 206. Next year, we're planning on 223. So that is what, 17 units. So you take that times $110,000 a unit. That's quite a chunk of change we're getting in the general fund from the state. As long as that continues and the state board continues to push that, because legislation hasn't passed that yet. Okay. So our first line item we're going to talk about, we have 17.7 administrative salaries in the general fund. This is not all across. This is just the general fund ones. This includes our summer school admin as well. We're looking at doing the 7% increase because they agreed to a 7% increase on the base pay they give me. Okay, it's two different things. It's not a salary increase. They give you a 7% increase on the pot of money they give you for admin. Okay, and you know we all have a different salary schedule than what the state pays us on. But we are saying that we will make sure no one gets more than 7% on that admin, okay, salary schedule.
So that cost for those admin would, I'm estimating 1.6 million, 45. Okay. What I get reimbursed from the state in the general fund when I put them on their salary schedule is the 1.297. Okay, the next one is the certificated. Now, we haven't negotiated that piece yet, but I always start with a planned budget of if we move people down on the salary schedule, and then we'll go from there. So this is right now how I have this. I have 257.5 plus 12.75 interventionists, and we'll talk about how ESSER will get involved in this afterward, but I'm including them in this budget until we get to that point. So we put them on the salary schedule, and I moved everyone down a step, okay? And that's all I've done. I haven't done anything else because we haven't talked about it. I don't know where our AP people are yet. We're still working on going through those. So they're just hanging out there in the same bucket until that point. But I also calculated the revenue the same way. When I did the revenue, I calculated that they were in the same bucket. I calculated everyone moving down the step, and that's how the money. So right now it's a wash for the people that are there. And as things change, people in, money out,
Right.
revenue
So it
higher.
could just depend on what our average allocation per teacher is, depending on the
Exactly.
AP and who leaves and who stays.
Right. So if you have one that moves down a step, I'm going to get more money, but it's going to cover it as well, etc. So right now this is the point of them staying where they're at on the AP rung, and this is just one movement down for everybody. Okay. And it's not doing anything with grandfathered yet, just so you know. That's what this dollar is. Okay. So that's the 13,435. In that revenue for the 12,878 is the revenue that comes in when I move them down. It additionally covers, I get some money for math and science because some of those teachers come out of the math and science funding in the general fund. I also get some money for career counselor, which is Brooke Claridge, in that fund. So I get additional. So it has those increases in there, and it also has, we're doing 2 teachers actually per elementary for literacy. Yes. Right? Or is it, no, 2.5. How many are we doing, guys? 2.5 per elementary. Okay. So that money, because we got a big chunk of change in literacy as well this year. So we're trying to make sure we're covering all of our kindergarten, full day kindergarten. Okay. The next one is classified. So this is 93 and a half FTE classified, plus we have 24 intervention aides across all the levels. Okay. And those are part ESSER too. We'll talk about that later. But so we took the salary schedule. They put, again, only 7% to the pot of money. It's not necessarily a 7% on our salary schedule or the increase, but they put 7% in our pot. What I'm proposing is that we increase the classified salary schedule by 5.5%, and then they'll step. The step equates to 1.5%. Granted, some of our staff are bottomed, okay? So the max will be 7, but there's going to be people that might get only 5.5% because they're bottomed at the bottom of the salary schedule, okay? Same thing, revenue is calculated based on units, 223 times their factor times the dollar amount that they're giving us, which is a joke what they give us for classified. So that's why you're seeing we spend more than $1 million over than what they give us for classified funding. Then I took and added the 19.59 for the benefits for the above those, and then the benefits for the revenue is based on when we put it in that salary skip in the salary-based apportionment, and it calculates all of those different pots, how much money I'm getting for the salary-based apportionment. I also get money for math, science, career counselor, and literacy for the benefits as well, and that's included in that number. So you're seeing all of the expenditures, which is the majority of our money is your salaries and benefits. Okay, let's scroll down here. Our next thing is, I'm calling them leadership stipends. I know we're not getting funded by leadership anymore, but we're going to continue with some of the stipends that we had prior to going to leadership. Some of you might recall we had quite a few stipends out there before we ever went to leadership, and then we started subsidizing them with leadership funds. And I think we might, and Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we might have even, do we have some additional pieces to those ones in the past, or just the ones that we had in the past?
No, so administrators met and we reviewed what they felt like were ones that really needed to be kept and paid for.
Okay.
Ms. Johnson, so that is above the 85,000 that's already in place, or is that
No,
gonna
so
include?
we've opted to put this in there. So the state has taken away the leadership premium funds with the insurance stuff that went through. So we've put back in, decided to put that there that we would fund some.
That was the amount that Minidoka paid before the state got their
Yeah, it's about the same.
nose in our business.
Yeah, I
Got
think
it.
actually we went a little more than what we paid before.
Okay. The next one is the occupational specialist stipend, which is just mostly your vocational teachers that are on an occupational specialist. They get 3,000, and that's just money in, and then the money comes in with the average salaries above. The revenue does. Master premiums. This is those teachers that have their master premiums right now, and I can't remember if this is our last year or not. It is our last year. The next one is interscholastic and extra day stipends. Right now I have a 0% increase on the stipends, so we haven't talked about increasing that at all. So this is just all the extra days, extra day contracts. So if you have 5 additional days on the library and etc., or it's all of our sports, athletics, band, all those types of programs. So we have $340,000 stipends there. Then we're going to talk the extra days, prep subs, 0 hours, credit recovery. So we also have some teachers that get paid for a 0 hour to do additional classes for dual credit, etc. And we have the prep subs that we have to budget for. That's we talked about earlier. So we've got $60,000 budgeted there. Employee of the year, and you know what all these are, retirement. This is when you get the payouts that are in our policy to pay those extra pay. Activity duties, that's just money in, money out. That's when you guys watch the gate or whenever the money comes in. I have revenue down below, covers that for them to watch gate or do other activities. Substitutes, I have $170,000. That's always a moving target, but I went back and kind of looked at what we've been spending, so I'm putting $170,000 there. Alternative summer school, that's got a little bit of an increase this year. So I've got $90,000 in for the alternative summer school. That's before benefits. Okay, so this is just the salary piece. Then I've got benefits for all of those above items that on the other pays at the 19.5 or 7.65 for the substitutes.
Hey, Michelle, can I ask a quick question? I'm sorry. On the summer school, you said that there was going to be an increase in summer school
Yeah, do you want to, is Michelle not?
because the days are shorter.
Do you remember, Maggie, exactly what we're doing with the summer school?
Yeah, it's because we're doing that.
Turn your microphone on.
We increased
The hourly for the summer school teachers, and then we also have that
what is it, a bonus?
It's like an attendance bonus.
an attendance bonus for teachers, so that if they don't miss any days, they
Got that bonus.
But summer school overall is 4 days shorter, is my understanding.
It is, and so even though
There's still an increase.
it's going to
even
be
with
a
that?
little bit shorter, there's an increase in pay.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
just a little bit if they get that bonus.
Okay, and I was thinking we increased the rate to, or was that just on the classified?
We increased it to $27.50 for teachers, and we increased it to $15 for classified.
Right, and and so you know the $27.50 stays for this year. But if we increase the stipend rate or the rate the following year, it will go to next summer school. Okay. Okay, health benefits. So this is the magic number we were just talking about on the health benefits. The cost to the district is $11,800, and we have 405 staff above. So that's the $4,784,000 we need to have in the general fund for health benefits. And then you'll notice I've got a little bit of offsetting revenue. That's just because I've got some math science teachers, the career counselors, literacy, etc., that dump some money to help pay for that. Okay, transportation got an increase. Of course, as you all know, we need it because we have higher fuel costs, we have double busing going on, we have higher pay, so I had to increase the transportation budget. I'm estimating that we'll get reimbursed by the state from the previous year because I don't get reimbursed on the current year's expenses. I get reimbursed on the previous year's expenses, so I kind of can estimate what our expenses are right now and do the estimation for that. Activity transportation, we did increase that. That was $90,000 before. We're increasing that to $120,000. We're having a lot of more activity trips at East and West with A to B because we cannot get buses. We don't have the time to take activities with our current buses or enough bus drivers. So our A to B costs have been outrageous. So we had to increase our activity transportation. We're continuing to give, and I think if this is correct, Ms. Ramsey, we are still going to give $5,000. Is that what we agreed to? The $5,000 per school for the athletics discretionary, to get like helmets or safety stuff or uniforms. Okay. Resource officer, $30,000. That's only one. The other comes out of the federal programs. Contracted behavior counseling. So we still are doing some behavior counseling in the district, and we have an athletic trainer at the high school. We're increasing the operational funds. This is your discretionary funds for your schools. We're increasing that by $25,000. So that'll go up to $250,000 to be distributed by unit to each of the schools. We're going to leave the teacher supply allocation. I'm hoping that was a good thing for everybody. So everyone will continue to get, and we had discussions that we want to do that for all certified, not just the classroom teacher. Okay. Curriculum, we're putting $500,000 into curriculum. We're hoping that, well, you've just got a little bit to finish for this year, but we're hoping we can start pre-doing math for next spring and getting it ordered ahead of time so it's here on time, because shipping takes forever to get anything anymore. I don't have anything for career counseling because I think all of her budget's only going to cover salaries now. If there's anything left, it will go into other staffing stuff or events that she does. Professional development, I've got $130,000 there, and I don't know if that's a correct number, but it's money in, money out. So whatever she gets, revenue in, that's a line item. Literacy, so this is the additional literacy money on top of the staff that we're covering in literacy above. So I think they're still debating on how we're going to spend their other literacy funding.
Would this possibly be literacy money used for the dyslexia training?
So this literacy funding is for K3.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So that can go to staff or whatever are the needs for those grade levels.
Yep, and your elementary team is the one who determines how we spend that. So when you go up, like we're paying for 10 teachers out of it.
I see.
At this point for next year.
Thank you.
Okay. The next line item is remediation. I know I've got Edgenuity. I need to get that taken off, but it's more for like credit recovery type things. So we'll be determining how we're doing our credit recovery or remediation. So we do have $83,000. That's revenue in and expenditures out. So we were paying for Edgenuity and maybe even help with remediation curriculum too as well. The next one is copier printer. That one increased this year. We have an increase in how we're doing our printers. So the admin will know that they're getting a little bit more money to cover that increased contract that we changed. Before it was so tedious because you noticed all the guys would jump in your rooms and try to take counts on your printers. We said this is just too much work. It was just hard for us to keep up on. So now we're just going to every printer in the district. And I think we're working.
Speaking of things that take forever to get here, printers.
And hopefully everyone will have new printers. Okay, so we're getting everyone.
Let's restate that. Everybody isn't getting a new printer. Everybody will have a new printer. Some will be replaced.
Replaced, right. Well, what I mean is they will be updated. I know a lot of you have already gotten the new printer. How's that? but they will all be on the contract. So if we have any issues with it, they have to come in and fix them. They give us all our toners. We don't have to buy toner. We don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. And we just have a set rate for each printer now. Okay. Utilities, I didn't increase this a whole lot. So that one is still at 750,000. The workers' comp and liability, we know we have a workers' comp increase this year again. And we meet with the liability insurance. We'll see what they're going to tell us next week. But we've got to start working toward our workers' comp claims and more safety protocol, because you see that's a big chunk of change. That's a lot of money just going to insurance. Okay, support service discretionary and IDLA. It's just paying any of those additional classes past the regular day that we couldn't provide IDLA classes for them. And then the rest support services is like board, district office, audit. It's all that yucky stuff that you don't care about. So $110,000 we have to budget for that. Grounds and custodial, we did increase the, it's not just grounds and custodial, this is the maintenance budget for keeping up on repairs, and the cost of stuff has been crazy. It's like doubled our maintenance costs. So that we did increase that to $400,000 as well. We're putting all the software. The two next line items is $900,000 worth of all our software, our servers, our internet, our computers, our access points, and all our laptops for 6th and 9th grade. So there's the $900,000. If you recall, that used to be in the supplemental levy, but since we've had ESSER funds, we're keeping it here. Then we can get more projects done, because there's so much need of fixing and doing our buildings than in the supplemental levy. So we kind of shifted that.
So you can use that supplemental levy for your maintenance and
more maintenance.
Gotcha.
So we can really get up on stuff we really need to get done on HVAC, etc.
Mr. Luna, an example of that being this propane tank at a Sequa, the fact that we moved that expense out of supplemental over to general, we were able to do that project we're in the process of and not be a burden to the existing supplemental levy projects.
And I'll just tell you on that, if some of you don't know, that propane tank we're adding out to a Sequa, I know it might look like a little bit of an eyesore at first up front, but we are spending double the energy costs that we spend at Haven Elementary. So if we can start recouping back that money over time, I think we calculated we've spent $1 million over time on utilities that we could have saved our district money. So just doing that project alone is going to save our district a lot of money. Okay, the next two lines are the supplemental levy. So these just get transferred over to plant, or it's used for maintenance costs. And then we have to transfer to bus depreciation. We have to transfer food service benefit costs, and we have to transfer Medicaid match, which that Medicaid match money comes in and it goes out. I'm putting 5% in contingency, so that's 1.6 million because we're allowed only 5%. And then the rest of it is just the revenue pieces of money that we bring in. So you're going to see the bottom line. We're in the whole 2.260, 2,260,000. And you'll notice that the carryover is right now we have $3 million in our contingency that we're going to use as the carryover. So down below you'll notice that we're going to use ESSER funds because a lot of the expenditures were up above. We're just going to take those and move them to the ESSER funds for the next 2 years, so we can hopefully keep all these interventions going for the next 2 years with the ESSER funds, because that's what most of these are. And then we'll have to go from there in the following years. So this is a lot of staff for the next 2 years that we don't know what will happen. Okay, that's in a nutshell.
I have a question for you, Michelle. On the copier and printer usage, okay, so you said that in the new thing with our printers, that they'll give us the ink cartridges. So will there be a limit on the number of pages people can print on their printers? Okay.
Nope, because it's a flat rate.
Okay, great. Just wanted to check on that.
It's a flat rate.
Thank you. Any more questions for Michelle or anybody? That's a lot to, to take in. Mhm.
And then Michelle, what? How much is the state paying us per unit again?
Well,
10,000.
on average, it's at 110,000, but you know, as salaries go up
Right.
and like the unit,
The allocation number can go up because
I'll have to look at it to see what it would end up being.
because we pay our teacher. We don't. The state doesn't pay us for each individual teacher. They pay us on the total average allocation of the salary. Okay.
When salaries go up, but when you start hiring a whole bunch of younger teachers or newer teachers, she doesn't like my word baby. You know that average goes down, and you know what we've done in the last
Right.
couple of years. A third of our staff are new.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm assuming.
So would you like us to list just some interests up there as we look at salary? Then, as that's what we're going into. Would you like us to do that? One interest is inflation and how that's affecting all of us. And then, kind of under that subcategory would be housing costs, rent, or buying. Other interests would be competitive with neighboring school districts. That's all I have for the moment. Maren, do you have anything to add?
One thing that came up on the survey was equitable.
came up multiple times.
Really expand.
Is that about everything, or do you need a few more minutes to think about it?
Can we take a 5-minute
Oh,
caucus,
you bet.
please?
Yep.
Thank you.
Caucus?
Yep, 5-minute caucus, please.
Okay, we're all back from caucus, and anybody want to start out the discussion? Please. Anything else? Are we ready to move on?
So does the district have anything to discuss on interests or thoughts after the budget proposal?
I think affordability is our only real concern, and that's already one of the things that we have in our standards. So we're super concerned.
Does Michelle have the does she have like the scattergram of what this is looking like? So Michelle, do you have the current scattergram up for what's in this general budget? Okay, thank you. So Michelle, this is um, this ending year right here, ending school year. Just a second.
Mrs. Luna, does this printout or Excel deal include this additional 1,000 in May? Premium pay, yes. But it's still a revenue to our employees, so it needs to count into the mix.
And then we'll have next year's too.
Yes.
All right, let's get going on some discussion here or some options or,
I have a question for Michelle.
okay, thank you, Wes. Go ahead.
So it looks like if you compare the cells, they're roughly each cell was increased on the main salary schedule roughly just maybe 1% compared to last year.
Probably, but because it's just whatever the state is, they do like a 1.25 or something. The state, I think, for another monthly.
Yes, something like that.
But then you're also getting new staff except for the ones that are brought in. So I think the main, I think the highest pay increase that I looked at when I typed it in, so moving from one to the other, the highest one I think was a 5.1% pay increase. I think that's the highest one.
And one thought I do have is I just want to make sure is we want to be competitive with neighboring school districts as we look at this. That on average, if you average out the salaries in neighboring school districts, Kimberly pays roughly $222 a year more than we do. Jerome's $902 a year. Hanson's $957. Cadge's $1,217. Oh, sorry. $1,217. Kimberly at $222. And then Twin Falls, their average pay is about $1,948 more than ours.
Is that per cell or just on a certain cell?
That's just the average. Averaging our average against their their whole average. Yes, 1,900.
My only, can I speak?
Yes, sir.
My only question is how they compare to us in benefits as far as, what we pay in insurance. My understanding at CASHA, the employee has to pay a part of their individual plan. So I don't know. We're comparing apples to apples is what I'm saying. We need maybe a complete picture of benefits and salary versus somebody else in order to be a more overview of the plan.
Any thoughts on how to change things, make it better? Any tweaks you want to talk about? Options? Holy moly, we did lunch.
I know the cold took off the kids.
Can someone tell me what their CASHA's employee is having to pay for just the individual plan? Somebody told us that at the insurance committee meeting.
I don't know what employees pay, but I know that to have just your spouse added is about 700 a month. So that's about what, 400, 500 less than what ours will be next year.
Well, so ours will be just over a through. So ours is going to be just over $1,000 to have your spouse.
Okay, so 300 plus.
300 plus.
But your individual in Kaja, we pay your whole individual insurance. In Kaja, they don't pay the whole individual.
Yeah, but I want to equate what they have to pay versus this increase in salary. and see who's really getting a better deal. I mean, they might be giving them more money on their paycheck, but it doesn't sound good on the insurance side.
Is that some information you feel like we need, or? Or you checking that?
I was just told we just got to be better than cash. We just got to beat whatever's across the river.
Well, I also wonder if anybody have like, are there any other questions that we should try and find during the lunch break, or?
At this point.
Ms. Louder, do we need a motion to adjourn for lunch and then come back?
I think we just need to decide how long we want to take for lunch and vote on that, and we can go. You don't want to eat and work, do you?
No.
It might get messy. 30 minutes?
Yeah, 12:30.